This is Civics, Chapter 8, Section 1, the State Legislatures. So, in the United States, there's three levels of government: the national, state, and then local governments. The national government, which we just discussed in the previous three chapters, it consists of the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch, and respectively, that's Congress, the President, and the Supreme Court. State governments operate very similarly, um, but there is some differences, and each state runs a little differently. So all state governments, they do have the three branches of government plus their own state constitution. So pretty much think about a state as its own little country, own little United States. The governor is the executive. Um, each state has its own legislature branch, and they all have their own courts. So, at the Constitutional Convention, many believe that that the newly formed U.S. they needed a strong national government, but some people wanted states to have more power. The Civil War actually was fought over this same discussion, but what the framers eventually did was came up with a system of federalism. And federalism is sharing the powers between the national and state government. So instead of one having so much more power than the other, or just having certain duties and the other having the other duties, there's kind of shared powers between the state and national government. The 10th Amendment kind of enforces that the national government has powers that are strictly written in the Constitution, but all the powers not given to the national government in the Constitution goes to the state. So the 10th Amendment literally reads, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the states. So all the powers that the national government can do are listed in the Constitution. Those that not are reserved to the states. So express powers, we've learned this before, are the powers of the national government, and they are specifically written in the Constitution. The national and state government do share powers, such as collecting taxes, creating courts, and enforcing laws. That's all something that they both do. And that's called concurrent powers. But reserved powers are powers that only the states have. The national government does not, such as creating public schools, conduct an election, and establish local governments. That's all reserved for the states. And the reason why we need state governments is because it's important that we have them in place and not just rely on a national government, because they're more attuned to the specific needs of citizens. Then, like, it all depends where you are. Different states have different needs. Like Pennsylvania needs to have snow plows, but they don't need them in Florida. So it would make no sense for a national bill to have every state have snow plows or whatever. Well, that doesn't make sense. Each state has different needs, but we don't need hurricane protection, but Florida does. They need to allocate money for that. Pennsylvania, that'd be kind of a waste of money. So each state has specific needs, and that's what the government tries to address. So, in this section, we're going to discuss the legislature. Every state government has a legislature that makes laws, but each state legislature is unique in organization. All the states, except for Nebraska, who has one house, have a two-house legislature. Pennsylvania's legislature is called the General Assembly, and there's two houses, the state Senate and the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. Pretty simple, very much like the national government. You have to be, it's a little easy, you have to be a little younger to be a state senator. You only have to be 25, and to be a representative, you only have to be 21. For some of you, that's only 3 years away. You can go run to be a representative, a Pennsylvania state representative. Pennsylvania's legislature is located in Harrisburg. So Harrisburg is also our state capital. We actually have a really nice state capitol building in Harrisburg. It's very ornate in here. It's a beautiful building, and it's well known, but it's kind of the crown jewel of the state there. That's our legislature building. So, in the state legislature, both houses are based on population. Remember, there's in the U.S. Senate, every state gets two, but at the state level, it's also based on population. But there's less state senators than there are representatives. So there's 50 state senators, and they broke down Pennsylvania into 50 districts, all equaling about the same population of about 250,000. Pennsylvania state district lines are voted on the state legislature about every 10 years with the census. PA state senators serve for about 4-year terms, and there are no limits. So they get elected 4 years, and they can keep going. Currently, where we are in Parkway, we are in the 37th district state senate, and our state senator is newly elected. He just got elected in November 2020. Is Devlin Robinson. So here we are, right here. There's the 37th district, and there's 50 of these districts, and each one of them is represented by a different state senator. See how, like, this area right here, not very populated, so there's only one there. But in small areas, especially in Philadelphia, you can go downtown Pittsburgh, smaller areas, but they all represent the same amount of population. All right, Pennsylvania State House representatives there's 203 representatives. That's a lot. Each district only has about 60,000 residents. The state representatives serve 2-year terms and are elected every 2 years without any term limits. State representatives are the most accessible to you as a state citizen or even as an American. So if you have a problem, it's the easiest to go to your state representative. They're most in tune to what's going on in your community, and they will help you out as best they can. They'll probably, when you contact or email a state senator or state any kind of we have a state senator, state representative, U.S. senator, U.S. representative. It might take them a while to get back, but I would say the state representative would get back to you the fastest because they have the least amount of people. And if you have issues pertaining to your government state, this is who you would go first, like I said. And Parkway is in the 44th state representative district, and and our state representative is Valerie Gatos. There she is, right there. So there's 203 little districts here. They're all broken up. Here we are, kind of in this bluish color. Okay, so yeah. Alright, so the main goal of the state legislators is to make laws. State legislators make laws that only pertain to their state and are very specific to their state's needs. If we're going back to the snowplow thing, they said we're going to, they say the state legislator says, okay, we're gonna have a budget $5 million of snowplows. That only pertains to Pennsylvania. That doesn't mean that Ohio has to spend that much money or Florida has to spend that much money. Laws made in Pennsylvania by a Pennsylvania state legislator only pertains to that state. So another example is that the state legislature can pass a law that legalizes marijuana. So even though nationally, this is kind of marijuana is kind of a state by state legal legality laws kind of a thing. Like Colorado and California, it's legal. So Pennsylvania could legalize it too, but right now it is not. Passing laws in state legislatures are very similar to passing laws in, like we talked about how a bill becomes a law in the U.S. Congress. Pretty much the same way as it is in state legislatures. Bill is introduced, there's a committee, it's revised and then edited. Next, the bill is debated and voted on in each house. Finally, the bill is passed in both the House. The bill goes to the governor and is signed into law. So the governor is acting as the president, and the governor can also veto. But that's next section. A difference between national and state legislators is that citizens can propose laws and submit it to their state legislators. So in the U.S. Congress, only a representative or a senator can introduce a bill, but that's not true at the state level. So what citizens can do is use an initiative or the process by which citizens can propose and pass laws. So say you want a law to be passed, you can get signatures for your petition. Like say you want if Pennsylvania really wanted to legalize marijuana, you can gather enough signatures. If you can gather 10% of all registered voters to sign a petition, then it'll be put to a statewide election. We actually had this not too long ago. It was voted down. Actually, no, that was in Ohio. Citizens were able to get 10% of the votes. It was on their ballot, but not enough. They did not get a majority of votes to approve that law, so it was struck down. But that's how citizens can make their own laws. So, but it's kind of hard. You have to get 10% of all the voters' signatures in the state. That's a lot of people. It takes a big effort, and then on the ballot, you have to get half of the voters to vote with you. Another way voters have a say in the state legislature is that a lot of times changing the Constitution in a state requires a referendum, which is law is referred to voters to approve or reject. So instead of the state senators and representatives voting in the House or state Senate, they can leave it up to the voters. They propose a new law, and it's up to the voters to vote whether they approve it or not. Like I said, most states require a referendum to amend their state constitution, meaning if you want to change that constitution, the citizens themselves have to vote on it. So it looks something like this. Do you favor the adoption of the act of blah 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 session of Alabama legislators? Yes or no? And then there's like questions, on ballots, referendums. Are you going to vote for the stewardship fund, the statewide business court, forest land conservation? So these are just things that voters themselves can decide on the laws. Another interesting thing that state legislatures allow that you can have a recall on elections. So that's the process for removing elected officials from political office, usually by citizens. So what citizens can do if they feel like their public elected official is not doing what they need to do or is being dishonest, they can gather signatures on a petition to remove such person from office. If enough signatures are gathered, then the citizens of that state will then vote to remove them from office. This happened in California not too long ago. Governor Gray Davis was not performing well. A lot of signatures were signed on a petition. California then had a recall election, and it removed Gray Davis, and that's how Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor. Is because Gray Davis was removed, and they replaced him with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But this is pretty rare to have a governor recalled. Only 2 have been recalled in the history of the United States. So this is something that you can do with really any public official in the state level. You can recall. This is Gavin Newsom. Recall. So you have to sign all these petitions, and then you have to go vote to remove them from office. So, how the state legislature approves all officials appointed by the state governor. So that's the way that it's very similar to the U.S. National government. one of the major jobs of legislators is balancing the governor's spending budget. That's how the legislative branch kind of checks the governor. Legislatures can impeach or formally charge government officials just like in the national government. So it's very similar how the branches at the state level check just like they do um, at the national level. So taxes. A state legislature, that's a concurrent power. Both national and state governments can tax. And taxes, well, financial charges to fund government spending. That's why we have them. We need them. If we want a functioning government and society, we need taxes, unfortunately. Sales tax, that's the charges made on purchases of goods and services. Pennsylvania has a 7% straight sales tax on goods. And that's actually a county thing, because I believe in Washington County it's 6%. But Pennsylvania, in general, states they have their own sales tax. And then excise tax. Tax is separate charge on certain goods such as alcohol, tobacco, and gasoline. So that's something that's already built into the price of the good. The state will charge a certain amount extra for tax. That's why gasoline's more expensive in Pennsylvania than, say, Ohio, because Pennsylvania taxes gasoline higher. And then cigarettes are also taxed less in West Virginia. That's why cigarettes are less in West Virginia than Pennsylvania. And then there's an income tax, which is a tax on all the earnings that you make. So in Pennsylvania, you pay Pennsylvania 3% of all the money that you make. But that's how the state government runs, and it needs your tax money.